So it's Thursday, and I have not thrown anything back in a long time. But today we're changing that. Today we are going to take a look at Final Fantasy IX. And this is a very special game for me. This isn't just a normal Throwback Thursday where I'm going to just take a look at an old game that I kind of enjoyed sometime in the past. This is a game that I have on my top 3 easily in favorite role-playing games, and absolutely in the top 5 games of all time for me. Even higher than, if not tied, a little bit higher than Final Fantasy VII when it comes to not only Final Fantasy, but games in general. And let's talk about that. It's not uncommon, actually, for people to speak about songs and movies or books that have changed their life. Not many people mention a video game, at least not seriously, when referencing media, that had such a profound impact on them that it altered the way they thought or saw the world afterwards. Perhaps because video games are still just being accepted as a regular and normal hobby for adults. Many people still associate video games as something boys play as kids, even though the average gamer is 30, with 47% being female. And actually the average age of frequent game buyers, so you would imagine your more hardcore gamer, is right around 35, which coincides with me perfectly. Now, all this is according to a Google search that pulled data from a study done by G4 TV. But I mention all this because I view video games the same way that I view any media. Just like TV, movies, music, they can also reach out and captivate somebody in a meaningful way. And today I'm going to talk about my experience back in the 2000s when I finally played through Final Fantasy IX. So I had just moved back to South Carolina from Oregon, and I was in need of a new game console. Back when before I moved back, I slimmed down kind of my belongings because I didn't have a whole lot of room for extra cargo, and I needed my essentials, and unfortunately, extras had to go. I had a really nice Yamaha 12-string acoustic guitar, which to this day I still wish I had, but I also had a ton of video games and consoles, and I couldn't bring them back with me. I didn't have the money to ship them to myself, so I did what nobody wants to do, and I went to a pawn shop and sold them for really pennies on the dollar. And I wish I had not done that, but at the time, that's what I needed to do. So I'm starting to collect some of those old games again, but some of them are getting harder to find. Anyway, when I got back to South Carolina, I went to Best Buy, and at that time, you could get one of the slim PS1s for about $50, and Final Fantasy IX, the green label, not the black label, was on sale for $9.99. So for $60, I was out the door with a new console and an RPG that I've been wanting to play for a long time. And I loved Final Fantasy VII, and I really wanted that same kind of experience, but in a new RPG. And from the screenshots that I'd seen of this game and from the reviews that I read, which back in the day weren't really that many, I decided this would be great. It looked like a higher resolution or a better looking version of Final Fantasy VII, at least to me. And the battle system was very similar, so I figured no-brainer. Now, if you've not played the game, what you need to know is that while you are on an epic adventure to save the planet, such as any RPG, this game, first and foremost, is a love story. At least to me it is. And that's the great thing about video games, is there is a specific story that the developers are trying to tell. But given the freedom of choice in video games and how you approach them and how you take in and process the information, they're a very personal experience for everybody. So the Final Fantasy IX that I played, while technically is the same game that many others have played, my experience is my own. So I may have played a different Final Fantasy IX than other people did, excuse me. And I'm going to talk to you about my Final Fantasy IX. So to me, the game was a love story, and I felt it was a damn good one. The game did receive a little bit of criticism from fans because a lot of those who played it they weren't really expecting that. But then there's also many others that loved it. And the ones that did play through and did enjoy the story were absolutely rewarded. And anyone who reads my articles know that I do my best to avoid spoilers, probably to a fault sometimes, because I rarely talk about the actual storyline in a game. So a lot of my reviews come off as a little flat, and I get that, but I don't want to spoil the story for anybody. I really just want to talk about the experience that I had. However, I can't talk about this game and how it impacted me without spoiling anything, so the game did come out back in 2002, I believe, so I feel it's okay to drop a couple spoilers here and there. So the story centers around the main protagonist, Zidane, and Princess Garnet to Alexandros. But from here on out, we're going to call her Dagger, because that's the name she takes. And that's easier to say than Princess Garnet to Alexandros for the rest of this video. But anyway, the love story between them is and it's your typical Romeo and Juliet. Dagger is a princess who was raised to speak and act properly, and Zidane is a basic thief who has little manners. Yeah, it's kind of cliche. These types of stories have been done a lot, but they're done a lot for a reason. They work really well, and we still accept them. But that's not the only love, in quotes, story going on in this game. Early on, in fact, very early on, the second playable character you get in this game is a mage, a young one named Vivi. And for many, this was the storyline that had the biggest impact on them. See, it turns out Vivi wasn't born, he was actually created, and you help him uncover this. He doesn't know this until a little early on in the video game. He kind of started figuring this out and piecing it together, and that becomes a major subplot of the game. But you see him kind of learn about this and kind of cope with it and come to terms, and you see him wanting to understand what it means to live and to live life like any other normal person. And by the end of the game, he figures out what it truly means to be alive. The way the game presents this is they make him very innocent. It's like watching a child learning about the world for the first time, but with a slight wisdom and maturity that would normally be beyond his years. It doesn't really come out a lot in the game, but every now and then, you know, as Vivi is learning and kind of acting like a child, he does something or he says something, and you know there's a little bit more to him. And that ties in great to the main narrative with Zidane and Dagger. See, both Vivi and Dagger, they want to find out what it's like to fit into the world. And there's some great scenes and dialogue with them and between them as the story progresses that kind of showcases this in a very great way. But both of them finally learn what it means to really be normal, or at least the normal that's perceived in the game. And the fact that they're coming at this same goal from two entirely different angles and backgrounds, like that just by itself makes a great story. And Zidane helps him out, and we get to learn a lot about him as he does that. And while, yeah, he's a thief, he does have a good heart, which, again, the thief with a heart of gold has been done plenty of times over, but it's a good story. People still buy it, and it still makes sense. And he helps people out just because it's the right thing to do, which, again, sounds odd given his profession, but just go with it. It works. One of my favorite quotes from him is very simple, is, "You don't need a reason to help people." Which, hey, is simple, but it's true. Two other quotes from him that I really enjoy is, "Sometimes you can't think everything out. You have to listen to your heart. And in the end, it boils down to two simple choices. Either you do or you don't. You think that with all the problems in the world, there'd be more answers. It's not fair, but that's the way things are. The choice is yours." So it says a lot of profound things for just this, thief that just comes out of nowhere. But I feel that the above quotes kind of do more justice about how I feel towards Zidane and his character than I could really hope to verbalize. He's a good guy, and through his actions, he affects the lives for the better of those around him. It sounds silly, but when I played through the game for the first time, I set the controller down and I decided, that's how I want to be. Every day I tried just to be a good guy to be around, and hopefully enrich those around me. So yeah, it's weird that you would think, why couldn't this guy just be a good guy to begin with? Why did it take a video game? Well, yeah, obviously I knew right from wrong, I knew how to be a good guy, but just playing through this game and just kind of growing with these characters, I don't know. It was just at a time in my life where when I played the game, like, all this makes sense to me. This is great, and it really impacted me, and I can't really verbalize what it kind of did for, I guess, my personality at the time, or can't really describe how it affected me. It's just one of those things that you put the controller down and you just had a great experience, and you immediately just want to go right back through it and do it again and again and again. I could go on for hours about this game, but I'm going to leave it with that. If you haven't played it, I cannot recommend it enough. The graphics are still just as charming now as they were a decade ago. Yeah, they're dated, but the art direction is phenomenal. It still holds up, and to use the word again, it's just very charming to look at. The music is phenomenal. It's some of Uematsu's best, and it stays with you long after the credits roll. So if you can and you haven't played it, set aside a few hours. This is absolutely an adventure that you're going to want to take. If you like this video, you can find more content from us at thedailygoatshow.com. Also, feel free to subscribe, like the video, and check out everything else that we have going on.